and welcome to the Bookish Rambles podcast with me, Holly.
I'm me, Becky.
Today we're talking about Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, which it's the Haymitch book in the Hunger
Yeah.
Games.
So it's a prequel, but it's not a prequel. It's like 0.5 or something.
Oh, I saw
So it's
that and I was like, okay, yeah,
it's a
sure.
prequel before the original prequel.
Yeah,
It's a pre-sequel.
it's such
That's good.
an awful numbering system. Like, just at that point, call it a spin-off and don't include it in the original running.
Yeah.
It
I think,
is.
but it's got ties to the original trilogy, though.
Yeah, it's I just hate the number zero, like 0.5
0.5.
in the like. It's
Yeah.
just ridiculous. Anyway, I think I was gonna say to begin with, shall we say our ratings? Because I think that our last time we did that like at the end, but I think that for this one, it would be interesting to know before we go into it.
Okay, so I'll go first. I gave it 3 stars. I am really conflicted about it, I will say.
Yeah, see that's why, because I gave it I think 5,
Hmm.
which isn't usually allowed, but it's allowed because
It's the Hunger Games book.
yeah, so I love the series, and I'm able, if I, because I think I explained this last time, but my rating system is that I usually wait a year. But it's a Hunger Games book, I've already read the Hunger Games, I already know that the writing tends to stick with me, so it gets a 5. But I do think that's interesting that we gave it different, because the thing is, do you know what I'll say? I understand, I think, the points that you're going to make. Haven't heard them yet, but I think I will understand them.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I think like it was very easy to read. It was a breeze to get through, but apart from like a couple of the chapters, I wasn't really on the edge of my seat. But I don't know if that's because I knew a little bit. We know a little bit
yeah,
about
exactly.
Haymitch's games from Mockingjay, so not Mockingjay, Catching Fire. So it's a bit
Yeah.
like
Well,
I know what I was going expecting. You know.
the thing is, I mentioned this in my video where we got more detail, and the reason why I think I like this so much is because of the films. And the reason why I say the films rather than the books is because in the Hunger Games films, you see Haymitch, for example, in the first film, the very first one, where Katniss is injured and she needs sponsorships and she doesn't have any. And so you see Haymitch going to these capital people and being like, look, sponsor her. And like pandering to these people that he hates for this girl that he hasn't shown that much affection towards. And I think I really liked that in the film we got those images of what was going on outside of the games, specifically in the capital, whereas in the books we don't get that because it's all from Katniss's perspective. And so this book to me felt a lot like we were seeing the stuff that filled in those gaps of why is it that Snow trusted Plutarch so much that he, in the second film, when everything goes wrong, he goes looking for Plutarch and is genuinely kind of surprised that Plutarch is involved in what's happened. And like we get to see this side of Haymitch, and him caring for people and learning about the dealings of the capital in order to understand these like interactions that we see that aren't in the books, which it feels weird to say that because obviously the films should be separate from the books, and they are, but also I do think it's really interesting to get that sort of context.
I did like the fact that we got to look into Haymitch's head and how he was before, he turned to drink after everything that happened to him
Oh my
because
god.
does she just want to destroy her characters'
I
lives?
don't know if you noticed this, but in like the first chapter, he says like, "Oh, I've never been a fan of drink, to be fair, but you know."
Yeah, no, I noticed that. I've actually there's a quote I tabbed, but not that. Let me grab my copy because there's a quote I tabbed that I want to talk about.
Because
But
literally, that broke me. I had to put the book down for a second to be like, "Oh God."
what broke me was the rigged reaping.
Oh my, yes. Where he just unfortunately ends up.
Oh, the wrong place, wrong time. But then
Yeah.
again, I think that makes it more understanding people why Katniss made a scene, and I think that, well, even though he knows Katniss, obviously Katniss is his friend's daughter.
Yeah.
Oh, he could have been like an Uncle Hamish if.
The bit at the end where he's like talking about how her dad was going round showing off his new baby daughter who he was so proud of, and how he
Yeah.
watched Katniss then go to, you know, on her own because her father was dead. Like, that stuff like really got me. I can't lie.
Mm,
That made me feel so bad.
yes. It's just so, like I said, it's so complicated. I think my main problem lies within Snow's motivations and things like that. I mean, I
Yes.
feel like Snow was kind of an irredeemable piece of garbage in this, which he is. Um, but I think in the original trilogy, he was more subtle.
Mm.
Where here, it feels like he's a walking canvas.
See, the thing I have with this is that I'm kind of conflicted on that point. Because on the one hand, I agree. On the other hand, I feel like maybe this is when he's 20 odd years younger, right? Like 25 years ish younger.
He's
And I
58.
feel, yeah. So I feel like maybe he didn't really understand the threat, because he clearly didn't understand that Plutarch was involved. And while he understood the situation with the victors, I actually think that is really interesting that he therefore ended up putting some of those victors who went against him in the games again. I don't think that's coincidental. I think that's a new
I
interesting
know that
bit.
definitely is, and that was
Yeah.
pure retaliation.
But like, I think that it kind of is interesting that, you know, he isn't this perfect person, and he feels comfortable around Plutarch and this guy who he thinks is going to end up dead enough to be kind of messy.
Mm.
Like, I disagree in the sense that he shouldn't really have been as bad as he was. I do think that he was a bit too messy, and I think it was a bit on the nose, shall we say.
Yeah, I feel like have you seen those jokey videos on TikTok where people are saying, "I'm sorry for liking that
Yeah,
video of Snow. It's just
I'm so
because Tom's
sorry.
life was so sexy."
Yeah, like, there were a lot of people who started thirsting over Snow, and I think she had to kind of push a bit harder than she maybe would have. But I think that it could be argued that he just felt comfortable around Plutarch, and that was the thing that really interested me, was his relationship with this head game maker in the making, who would later go on to actually succeed at the rebellion. Like, this was a failed attempt. It made Snow harder, and it made the hit to his ego worse when it eventually happened.
Mm.
I don't know. Like, the thing is, I fully get that point, and I think that all of the arguments for it are completely valid. But also, I think that it's hard to know whether that was like the intention, or whether it was just an effect of this being a prequel that was like,
Or maybe, yeah, or maybe the poison affected his mind.
yeah,
Because you know
like
the scene where he poisons the, oh gosh, what's his name? The guy,
the guy who's
where,
in charge of
yes, and he gets poisoned because obviously Luella
yes, the
gets killed
taker.
by the chariots because that scene really broke my heart because what do you mean she gets trampled because there's too many
Oh,
people on the chariot?
see, the thing is, that was obviously like a more merciful death than
Yeah.
perhaps the games. And then,
Or perhaps some of the deaths that we'll get into later, but
oh,
wow.
we need to talk about that, because I have so many thoughts on that. But I just think that, like, it definitely was, like, it felt, and I mentioned this in my video of it, so like, it definitely is something that I'm not gonna deny. It did definitely feel like it was written after the originals. It didn't feel like it had been planned for the past 10 years.
No, it felt very brutal. Speaking of
Yes.
snow, while we're on the subject, the one thing that I did really like, because I don't normally bookmark quotes, but you know, after he's been poisoned, and then Plutarch goes and gets some milk, and then Hamish is left away alone with Snow,
Mm.
and he's asking about Lenore Dove. I think it's page 129, and
Yeah.
where he says, "All the birds I've encountered are vicious."
See,
I really like that quote.
I just think it's really weird because this book to me did feel like a Hunger Games book, but also
But
it
not at the
didn't.
same time.
And that's what I was conflicted with because I gave it a 5 because it was a really enjoyable read and I feel like I think that it was done well enough that like a lot of things made sense.
See, you know, with like Plutarch, who is like one of the most complicated characters I think Suzanne Collins has ever created because of how morally grey he is.
He's that like
Um,
perfect leader person where he's good enough to be like the best option, but you know, you wouldn't necessarily trust him.
no, so you know how they were saying like they need an army at the end of the book, and
Oh my
they
gosh.
pick people and stuff, and I
Yeah.
think the main reason why he singled Haymitch out is because of the rigged reaping.
And then the act with Luella and
Yeah,
the fact that he
and I
was
think
just
that's why they
so.
singled him out. Because I think I saw some people saying, why did he signal him out? And I'm like, it kind of is there. You need to look for it. It's there. Why they signaled him
He
out?
was very
Why they told him
clearly not
this
pro
plan?
capital. He was willing to do stuff that was at his own peril to try and
Yeah,
like punish the capital. Like he was, yeah. I think he very much. And do you know what I will say? I think it makes a lot of sense. I've seen some people criticize that it doesn't make sense with Catching Fire, that no one told Katniss that Haymitch was like, you know, had done this. But I think that makes sense. Like, why would you talk about your rebel activity when you know that there's very few places where you won't be on camera and you're dealing with someone who, like, bringing up rebel activity while you're planning a rebellion? it it feels to me like maybe it made sense that they would keep everyone in the dark and kind of pretend that that hadn't happened.
exactly. And when you think about him, and you think about how he kind of just willingly goes with 13's plan, so it does kind of make sense. So there are things where it does make
Yeah.
sense.
And it makes more sense as well because we do know now that Plutarch had built this relationship with Snow over a long period of time. Like, he was able to do what he did because he had the confidence of the people around him. And he was so sneaky that he managed to do all of this under the radar. And also,
Yeah.
him taking Haymitch to the room in District 11 where there are no cameras.
I
It's
feel like that was a cameo almost for the room.
Yeah, but I thought that was so interesting because that to me suggests that there are places that he would understand or, you know, like where he could take the other victors and be like, look, this is our plan. No one's going to hear about this because we're in a safe zone, basically.
Mm.
Like, it's really interesting to me that we have these, like, little pieces of information that, you know, like, how would Haymitch have figured that out on his own?
Exactly. Oh,
Why would he have
speaking of
even been in the
district,
attic? Like,
yeah,
it's.
speaking of District 11, with
Oh
Luella's
my
death, and then
god.
like Lulu. Oh my god, what the
That
heck?
genuinely was so horrific to me. Like, and do you know what I think is awful? Is someone's pointed out that obviously District 11 is known for, like, black people, primarily. I don't know where District 11 is supposed to be because, to be honest, the whole layout of Panem is.
District 12 is Appalachia.
Okay. So I think.
There's a map, if I remember correctly. So yeah, which is, I mean, I don't, you know, like Rachel Zegler, because
Yeah.
you know she's Covey, like in
Well,
the
I think
book,
Covey
in
is
the film.
supposed to be, like, nomadic
Romani,
peoples.
yeah, the Romani.
Um,
But
Because
because it's
Native
in
Americans as
Appalachia,
well, a lot of people have said that District 12, they share a lot of the physical attributes as well. So I think, obviously that's not a coincidence, like the intersection of race. We talked about this last time, but the sort of the race, the class, and all that sort of stuff, it's very much, you know, I would say it's pretty obvious that that's also at play in this, but I think that,
Okay, District 11 is the south. So
okay,
like Tennessee.
so I was gonna
But
say, like,
this is, I think, I don't know if this is official, but it looks official.
because I
So it's
was
like
gonna say it
Florida.
makes
It's the
sense
south basically.
if it was like the areas that were most heavily affected by like the sort of slavery stuff. Like,
Yeah, because it says Memphis, so yeah, it's
because I think
Tennessee and stuff like that.
that is like implied, and I think that it's really interesting that she had a non black child be replaced by a very similar looking black child, presumably. Because when you think about that, it's like how they said, like, everyone who's watching who knew Luella would know that it wasn't her.
Mm.
And it's like, you have to wonder, there's got to be some implication for that. And I don't want to theorize too much about it because I'm definitely not educated enough on America specifically to talk about the complex racial sort of everything. But like, I think that that is really interesting to me. Like, to me, that is something significant.
Yeah, because obviously people from the seam are described as dark skinned because there's like Native American descent.
Yeah.
So Luella was from the seam, wasn't she? I believe.
Yeah, she and Haymitch are both, I
She was
think.
dark skinned, so I'm just trying to think because that's how they kind of got away with it in quotation marks. Got away with it almost.
I think, yeah. It's just, it's so, like, interesting because when you consider that the poorest people are racial minorities and that the rich people primarily are white, at least in the films, I think the films are really important for this because you see it a lot more. A lot of the, like, District 1 people and the sort of careers are shown to have, like, blonde hair, or
mm.
obviously they have, like, very brightly coloured hair and stuff like that. But I think it is sort of, for me, the fashion, for example, is kind of reminiscent of very early 20th century fashion. And, like, the sort of ruffs, the sort of, you know, the, I want to say campness of them by modern standards. Like, it's very over the top, it's very formal, it's like,
Almost like, you know how the Met Gala is very over the top.
yes,
Like that. I have
literally
seen
like
people
that.
comparing it to that. So yeah.
Like, it's very much what used to be the ideas of wealth. It's very much these ideas of class equality that have existed for a very long time, rather than just the modern ones. And it's set in the future, I'm pretty sure. Like, it's set in the North American future, but it's got this sort of very classical feel to it. Like, it doesn't feel modern even though they have all this technology. It doesn't feel modern even though, you know, they're surrounded by holograms and hovercrafts. Like, you look at it and you just think, these are
This is very
people,
dystopian.
yeah, they're being affected. Very like The Handmaid's Tale, where the handmaids wear these very old-fashioned clothes, and they, you know, they don't have all of these modern equipments and stuff. And yeah, it's set in the future. And I think it's the same with the Hunger Games, where you have a lot of issues that are present, which are basically based off of things that have happened in American history and fashions which have ceased to be fashionable nowadays. And I know a lot of them are very modern in the sense that, like, for example, the plastic surgeries to look different, and for example, is her name, what is her name, the tiger, oh my gosh,
Tigress.
is that literally her name?
I don't know. I don't think that's her name, but
Because
that's
all
all I
I'm
can
thinking of when
remember.
I hear tigress is Kung Fu Panda. And like that's not. But like I
I
get
don't
that
think
there's stuff like that which is very outlandish and very futuristic in the way that it sort of like implements technology. But I also think that there very much is like there's a reason why their weapons in the arena are like swords and daggers and bows and stuff. Like
Mm.
basically, I'm getting very off track, but my point basically is that I think the race dynamics were even more obvious in this one, I think, because we had more people from the scene, we had people from District 11 and mentioning of their culture and like their songs. We had the fact that there was a person from one race being portrayed as someone from another. We had the bringing in of this basically the culture of the careers was brought into it, which I think you could very much argue is like the culture of the aristocracy in the past, where they were sort of expected to follow these very specific rules, and it was like a shame if they didn't, especially in women, which the person who is mentioned in like hair, it's oh my god, what is her name? Silka?
Sylvia Sharp.
She's the one who it's mentioned, and
It's
she's
either
obviously the
Sylvia or
woman.
Silver or something. I think it's Sylvia.
She
Sylvia Sharp.
Let me get up a list of the characters because I'm gonna need to make a note. I mean, we're gonna have to get into Amput.
Oh no, can we not?
I feel that we have
No,
to.
I was going to mention him and realize, what? I knew. See, I'm sure his death gets described in Mockingjay. I keep saying Mockingjay Catching Fire. I'm sure Katniss talks about seeing his death in the book and talks to Haymitch about it,
Do you
because
know
I
what?
swear I've seen the scene before.
I want to talk about something that I think, and I mentioned this when we were like setting this up, but when it comes to the deaths, when you look at like the previous Hunger Games, for example, you look at the Hunger Games and Catching Fire, I think genuinely that most of the deaths are tribute on tribute. Like, and I don't know the stats on that, but you have in Catching Fire, you have a bunch of victors who, they're fighting each other. There's a bloodbath. You have Kato and his group in the first one, and how they're very vicious, and how Thresh kills Clove. You have a lot of the tributes doing what they're supposed to do in the arena. And I say supposed to as in, like, what's expected of them. The reason why they're there. But the thing that really gets me about it is that in this book, most of the deaths that we see are caused by the arena itself and the game makers.
Yes.
Because you have
But then,
Ampit, who we won't talk about too much, but he dies
yeah,
a very brutal death.
well, it gets eaten by mutant squirrels.
Down to the bone, which is just...
Yeah.
You have... Well, Maisley is killed by Mutz as well. You have the people killed by the volcano. You have Lulu, who is killed by the flowers. You have presumably a few more people who are killed by things like the water. I think it's suggested that the careers, a few of them die from eating food or drinking stuff and poisoning themselves. Plus the actual bloodbath itself. Like, you have a very clear display of like this games was about the brutality of the capital against the districts and against these tributes.
See, that makes me wonder because it's the 50th. It's the quarter quell, isn't it? So they have obviously twice as many tributes, and I think that is where they've gone. That's where they've made the arena like horrible because of how many tributes they've got. Because this is a spectacle, isn't it?
It's
so
supposed to be
if they
brutal and like, yeah,
it's a spectacle. That's what it is. So to have a spectacle, they will make as many mutts as possible, and obviously people will see the edited version,
And
but
then
they'll work it to their advantage, won't they?
especially you have the game makers who the careers like have a temporary truce with Hamish, and I think is it Maisley who gets involved, where they kill one of the game makers or two of the game makers.
3 of them.
Yeah, and like
Maisley was I loved Maisley. She reminded me a bit of like Joanna.
yes, no,
I
that's
could just
exactly what I
feel
was.
the rage in
Okay,
her. She was great.
legitimately, do you know what I was gonna say? Because
Mm.
they've cast McKenna Grace, we're gonna get onto that. If you look at a picture of
Yeah, I mean,
McKenna
I'm sure she'd be good,
Grace,
but I just don't see it.
I think that she visually looks like the actress who played Joanna in the films.
Yeah, yeah, I see where you're getting from.
And I think that the edits are gonna go so hard when this film's been made. Because you
Yes.
have two people who seem really delicate and feminine and shy, and they get into the arena and they're just like cutthroat.
No, how
And
like Maisley makes poison darts.
yeah,
What a
and
great.
like actively kills one of the game makers just because she has the opportunity, and she's like, oh, I helped keep these people alive as much as I could, and you know,
Yeah, see, I think she did that personally, one, because she's so angry at them because they've been put in this situation, and I think she kind of worked out what Hamish was trying to do.
yeah, she fully knew that he was up to something, and she was like, okay, yeah, I'll pretend I don't see it. I'll,
The poster reference.
yeah. I just think that
Uh,
she is like so Joanna, and I genuinely hope that there are edits because I do believe that she looks quite similar to Jenna.
I don't know her name.
Let me. I have checked, and it is Jenna Malone, and I think that they look similar. And I'm gonna send you two pictures right now because I think that it's like so close that it's almost uncanny, actually. That
Well, if they have
they,
the same facial structure.
yeah, these two pictures I think make it look a lot more similar because they have like,
Oh yeah. Now I
right?
can see it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see it. The nose is different, but the face.
is like,
Oh, she's got bigger eyes, but yeah, she's a
I
bit.
fully believe that the edits of them and the similarities between them and how one of them was forced to live out as a victor and the other was, you know, killed for her defiance. I think it's going to be so interesting, the comparisons between that
Mm.
as a whole. But I believe genuinely that there was so much capital on district violence in this whole, even from the very beginning with the reaping and the way that, you know, these innocent people are killed, and, you know, the Nord, she's almost killed because she tries to help the person take the body of her son, I think it is. It's been a while since I read it, but like there's just right from the very beginning, it's very clear that like this book is not just about the Hunger Games. It's not about the spectacle of the games itself. It's about these people fighting the capital and about how that has been going on for way longer than I think it was interesting that she did that because especially after people have been thirsting over District Snow. District Snow? You know what I
That's
meant.
a new one.
But I think that people were really like forgetting that Snow was supposed to be this villain because they cast someone who is conventionally attractive in the role. And I think that what really happened here is that she said, look, he was problematic from the very beginning, and this was never about the games. It was always about the capital and
Control.
about the way that things were run. I don't know. I just think that it was really interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, did you have any thoughts on like that? Like, did you notice that when you were reading, or
Yeah, well, yeah, because of what he does. He's poisoning people. the poisoning the game maker. What? There's one thing that this isn't to do with Snow, but the designer guy.
Yes.
What was up with him?
Oh, I think it's really interesting. Like, hang on, how did he?
Did he die? No, he didn't die, did he?
I think he may have been killed. What was his name? Because he was.
I can't remember.
I've got the wiki up, so I'll get the woman because they were together. I think.
Oh, Drusilla.
Yeah, she.
Drusilla was a bitch.
Oh, absolutely. She's here.
I'm just gonna look in my first edition that I've got. Yeah, he was a bit bizarre with his snakes, because he kind of just disappeared.
He was just
and he's not really.
Oh.
Magno.
So, yeah, because was it frogs?
Snakes or something, or reptiles, something like that. Yeah, here we go. I've got a description here. Magno's stiff, sun-leathered skin has been tattooed with a snakeskin pattern. So yeah, it was snakes.
No, but it says they found him sick and inebriated from licking toads for their hallucinogenic venom. Is it venom, or would that just be...
Yeah, no, it'd be venom because... I know I'm talking about frogs, but poison dart frogs are covered in venom.
I thought that would be poison. Like, I thought venom was what you inject. I'm getting into semantics here.
Venom's like the teeth, or is it poison? I don't know.
Anyway, basically,
we're talking about bloody poison.
I think it was interesting to learn about that, though. Like, the fact that the capital has, like, drug use, but in a really weird way.
Yeah, well, like, we think Snow's weapon of choice is poison, and people know that about him because he just uses it all the time.
Like,
yeah,
it's so. I think they really. I say they. It's just Suzanne, but she really managed to expand this whole world, basically, where we knew about the capital a little bit, and we had, like, I don't know, we had all of these very specific ideas of what the capital was and how wasteful it was. And I think in this book, it was shown that the people in the capital, they just have no idea. Like, they really have no idea. And it's not because they don't want to.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. But it literally, like, because obviously Effie we knew was clueless, and then when she stopped being clueless, she discovered it. But, like, the way that she interacts with... And the thing is, I will say, I didn't love that she was in this book, because on the one hand, yes, it was kind of nice to see her. On the other, it felt very much like fan service. But...
Yeah, I think a lot of people have said some of the cameos were very, like, fan service. But then, you can make it make sense that that's how they know each other.
The Mags and the Wirus one, I think that was really good. I think it was nice to know why they were the way that they were, and it was kind of heartbreaking, to be honest, to see how they were before they got punished.
Didn't stop them though, did it?
No. Mags especially, who, like, willingly died for the cause to save everyone else.
Yeah, Peter.
And Wirus, who, like, figured out the whole clock thing and was, like, clearly still very smart, just incapable of expressing herself. Like, it was heartbreaking, but also I'm so glad that we now know for sure why and, you know, how, even if we don't know the specifics, but I think that was nice. But I think with Effie specifically, it was really interesting to see the way that she interacted with people, and to see that, you know, she hasn't changed much. Like, she stays naive, she ends up being a little bit more hard-worn, I would say, perhaps from her exposure to Haymitch through the years, and the fact that she has, like, been stuck in District 12 rather than progressing into, like, the higher districts where she gets like, I think it makes sense that she would be sort of beaten down and disheartened by the fact that she has had this career for like 20 odd years and it's not improved.
Yeah, but because I remember Mockingjay, she. Do we know what? I can't remember. Do we know what happens to her in the book? Obviously, she's replaced in the
And
film. I feel like she's more involved in the film, but I can't remember.
she and
I only reread them last year and I just cannot remember.
the crew, Katniss's like crew, they get taken and tortured.
No. I
District
mean, Effie
13.
isn't there though. In the film, she is, but in the book, she's not.
No, but she is
That's it.
in District 13. She's just.
I can't remember.
Let me get up her thing because it'll say.
I'm sure she's in the capital.
Biography. Wow, this is a long one. Okay. After Katniss destroys the arena, Effie is arrested with the prep teams.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Effie
is
is
this the movie though?
once President Snow is released from prison. No, when
so she's
President Snow is sentenced to death, she's released from prison.
Oh, so she's in prison the whole time, okay.
And then Haymitch and Plutarch bring her to District 13 so she can prepare Katniss for Snow's execution. And then Katniss is like, I want her to be granted immunity when it comes to President Coin. But then Katniss kills Coin.
Wow.
So
she had it coming.
There, and then in the film she becomes a more pivotal part, which I'm going to be honest, I like, because I think...
Yeah, I think it works.
She is one of the few people who actually has been with Katniss and understood her, and Effie in the films has so much depth, and the way that she genuinely feels sad for these people that she knows and cares about, and that she grows, it's shown a lot more, and I think that it's lovely to see.
Yeah, you can see how like how disillusioned she's getting with like the system.
It's absolutely fantastic.
And that's how it starts.
And
yeah.
We have this in the books now where she is shown up and she's got this like presence where she is the way that she was before, but we get more of an insight into exactly what her life was like and to why she's so naive. And it makes it more impactful to me that she then is able to change her ways after so long.
Yeah. Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But
I think, do you know what? The thing is, I gave it 5 stars. And I do agree with that 5-star rating. But I also think that it is important to acknowledge, and that I did feel while I was reading, like, oh, maybe, it's nice that we got this, but it did feel a bit fan-servicey, and it did feel... I think it made the book feel more like something that was written...
afterwards.
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think... about it... maybe you'll agree, there are things about it that I thought fit in really well.
Yes.
But there was that overtone, and maybe that would always have been there, but,
with Lenore Dove, the reference to Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven was a bit annoying. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, I ended up skipping over a lot of those.
Yeah, Suzanne had such a way with songs, like, because The Hanging Tree, that is an original song, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't understand why she's borrowed and changed the lyrics. Like, I really think she could have created something new. I would have been more excited with that. Because obviously no Dove is Covey, and she's still she's still with her culture almost, isn't she? So
I would have preferred an original song, because I get the themes of like what it was trying to invoke, but it was mentioned too many times. Like, if it had been something original, it being brought up repeatedly wouldn't have been a problem. But it being something that was very clearly an allusion to something else, it just felt very, like... Okay, I've done this with my own work, and I know that you've done this with yours as well. It feels really weird sometimes when you bring in too many real world elements into a fictional story and you rely on those elements to create the impact emotionally.
Mm.
Like, to give an example, in my science fantasy that I'm working on currently, I originally was going to have a quote from a very famous film and like reference it in a way that would sort of say, hey, this is a film that you should be thinking about and the implications of when you're reading this book because they're similar vibes. But I decided that it was too on the nose and it was so cheap almost. Like, I would rather come up with an entirely fictional film, or I would rather just, like how in The Bell Jar, well, you may not know because you've not read it, but if you're aware of the fig tree thing in The Bell Jar, where it's like there are all these different blossoming fruits, but I have to pick one before it falls and it rots, and the fruits represent all these different lives you could have. But then you're so paralyzed by what you don't know what you want and what you don't know if you need that you don't pick any of them and they all rot away right before your eyes. Like, that sort of metaphor was come up with by Sylvia Plath for the book. And so it really is quite impactful. And then if you stole that and put it in your own book, it would just feel... do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it would feel a bit, I don't know, on the nose. I think that's the best expression.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what happened with this.
Yeah, with snow and stuff, and yeah. I think that is what. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think that is one of my main issues with it. That it feels very on the nose. Like, I enjoyed what I read. Like, I'm not going to deny it was a fun read. Fun as in tearing my heart out. Chapter 1 was probably the worst chapter I had to read. Chapter 1! I think I was messaging you going, what?
As soon as I saw that, I was like, I know exactly what she's just read.
And then the ending, I kind of knew it was coming because I thought... I was like, Haymitch is on his own. I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that kind of lost the shock value. But Luella dying and the reaping being rigged, that was the shock element for me.
That was awful. And the way that... yeah. But I agree. Like, I think that she borrowed too much from her own works previously. She borrowed way too much of the Poe stuff. Like, I get it, but when Mockingjays are, like, the most important part of the major story, I just kind of wish... And, like, the Mockingjay pin, I'll say that now.
Be Maisley's originally.
Yeah, that is really interesting. But I think that, like, stuff like that, there are only so many references that you can put in before they become overused. And I don't know. I think that it was definitely much better than I was expecting, because I kind of went into it thinking, like, what if it's such a cash grab that it's insane? Because it came out quite soon after Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I would say. Whereas Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was a few years after Mockingjay, so it felt kind of different, but it did definitely exceed my expectation. Like, I think that's why it got a 5 for me as well, is because I was expecting it to be almost bad. Like, I was embarrassed for the thoughts that I had of what it might end up being. Like, I was like, am I really about to read this? And
yeah, in terms of the writing, I really, like you're on about, I really feel like it was Haymitch. It felt like Haymitch to me.
Yeah, like it was good enough and original enough, but also I get why you would give it 3 stars, especially considering that you're in your 5-star slump.
Oh, I haven't. Yeah, it's going to be very rare. I think I don't know if my rating. maybe I'm being too cruel on some of the books, but then it's like I know what I want.
You should
I know
feel
exactly what I
5-star.
want.
You know, like you should be able to feel that in your heart that it is a 5-star book.
Yeah, 3 stars is not bad by any means. It's just it's literally just personal taste.
Yeah.
Um, like like I said, it's like if I've got any issues, if I've got no issues with it, but I think as I've gotten older, especially when you write, you tend to see things in a more literary manner, let's say.
I
But I don't
do.
think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I think it's important, and I think, like, if I was to be more critical of it, I would probably give it maybe like a 4. Um, but I do think that it's important to acknowledge that, like, you know, enjoyment is a big factor of it. And if you enjoyed it but you didn't feel like it was worthy of a higher than a 3, then it wasn't, you know? And yet we're still able to have a conversation about it. And I think that's part of what is so interesting about it, is that even though a lot of people have a lot of things that I don't necessarily fully agree with in the way of criticism, I also believe that it's important that we talk about it. And I think the film version, I am hoping that the film, in its attempt to be a bit more subtle, perhaps because they're not able to, you know, obviously put all of the stuff in the book on the film.
Yeah, so if they cut a bit of like the snow stuff out, maybe.
Trim the fat, shall we say.
Yeah, because well, it's probably going to be about like an hour and a half to 2 hours, isn't it? So
I reckon it'll be 2 hours, honestly, like an hour 50.
yeah, because it'll be a blockbuster because it's a
Yeah.
big
And
series.
we've
But
got Jesse Plemons is playing Plutarch, which I'm hugely there for, by the way.
yeah, I think that's great. That's a good
Perfect
casting.
casting. If I Google the cast, I
I just wish they'd cast people of color.
see. I
Hey,
think that it
Richard.
is a shame that,
We were so robbed.
but also I think for the films it kind of does make sense that they would match
Yeah,
to
the original
I guess it
trilogy.
depends. Like, are they? Because Jesse Plemons as Plutarch to me makes it feel like maybe they're trying to make him look exactly like he did in the film.
I think they are because look at the young Haymitch.
Yeah. Do you know what? The young Haymitch, I haven't seen him in anything before.
I think he's in We Were Liars.
I
There's
mean,
a
yes.
series coming out.
I didn't know that was
I think he's
a
been in a
thing.
lot of indie films, and then We Were Liars are making a series. I think he's in that. I saw a photo with him holding saying We Were Liar card or something.
Yeah. There's. Do you know what I will say? Have you seen the casting for Lenore Dove?
Yeah, I quite like it.
I'm like there for it. I think it's nice that they chose an actual person of colour. For one of the
Well, at
main
least they got one
characters.
thing right.
Because it's like you might as well do that, you know. Someone who actually has been in quite a few things. So, and then you don't love McKenna Grace, but I do think that the casting is pretty good, and I'm hoping that
No, I
she.
think it's a good casting. I just don't. It's personal taste. I can't vision her. But I will give them kudos because she's a teenager, isn't she? I know is she
She's
19?
18.
18.
I
At
googled
least
that.
they actually cast a teenager
Yeah,
for a teenager.
and
I
I
will give them
reckon
props for that.
in like the uniform, she might actually end up looking quite close, because you sent me those like fan drawings, and I mentioned that she looked a bit like Taylor Swift. But I think that she has that sort of vibe as well, to be fair.
Yeah,
I reckon she can probably pull it off. Like, I'm quite excited about the cast that we've got so far, which admittedly isn't very many people.
I'm sure she'll grow me. It's just I'm not.
You'll have to
I
see
don't know.
it.
She's in everything though as well, isn't she? She's in everything.
Yeah.
She's like who's that actress? Not actress. Who's that actor that used to be in everything? Oh my god, she's like a James Corden. Almost.
Amy Schumer?
No, not Amy Schumer. I don't
That's
like
the
Amy
only person
Schumer.
that comes up when I
I
think of James Corden.
Oh, James Cook. Oh. Anyway, let's not talk about celebrities I don't like.
Do you know what? I hope though that they get. I hope. I've seen people say that they want Elle Fanning to be Effie. I agree with that. I think she would be quite nice.
Yeah.
I also
Okay, yeah.
really like the idea of Stanley Tucci returning.
Mm, yeah.
I think he would be a great Caesar Flickerman. But yeah.
I think that's not who they've casted, though, is it?
I can't see anything online. They're being so hush hush.
If you look at the Hunger Games TikTok page.
Funny.
This is why we have TikTok, people, because if you can't find anything, it'll be on TikTok most likely.
I can't see. I can see Plutarch. I can see Maisley, Haymitch, and Lenore.
Hey, maybe they haven't announced it then.
I'm so.
I'm trolling you. I thought you'd see my message.
The thing is, they cast what message?
Just look at the message.
I haven't got a message.
Oh, I just sent you a message on. I just sent you a TikTok video.
TikTok. What I will say is that they cast. Oh, that would drive me nuts.
No, wait.
It'd be so funny if they did that, though.
Yeah.
But it would like me.
If you wonder what I've just sent her, like, Tom Blythe is reprising his role as President Snow with the Josh Hutcherson meme.
I really would love that, because then the vision of him as Snow would be corrupted for people.
Yeah, but he wouldn't get it. You'd have to, like, wear, like, a load of makeup. I wonder who they will cast as the young Snow.
Is it Robert Schwartzman? Is that who they cast as... No.
I have no idea. You're saying some celebrities' names and I have no idea who they are. I have no idea who that is.
Ballad of Songbird.
I actually haven't seen the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I actually haven't read the book. I just looked at I just looked at the spoilers.
Yes. So Jason Schwartzman.
Schwartzman. Right.
I got it. I'm not saying it again. He played Caesar's father.
Right. Okay.
So they might choose. I'm hoping that they just choose Stanley.
We'll see. We won't.
Yeah.
We'll announce it eventually.
I will admit they've announced less cast members than I thought, but I am kind of hopeful. I hope that the film makes it very like. I don't want them to censor it. I don't want them to make the deaths less brutal. I don't want them to pander to the people who...
Yeah, and how one of the tributes gets the head cut off, yeah.
Yeah, I want it to be as brutal as they can be without making it an 18, because that would be...
I mean, even if, like, they pan away, but at least we get to see, like, a bit of the body or something. This sounds really morbid. Or blood.
I think a lot of them, they can probably cover it up. Because Haymitch isn't at the scene of the crime, shall we say, for all of the deaths. So I think they can probably figure it out. But I want them to make this film better than the book. I want them to not make it better in the sense that like it's going to be better than the book, because you know films are usually not as good. But
you want them to expand on the elements that make it good,
and perhaps remove the elements that don't. Especially if you have similar cast members. Like, do you need to have these cast members, you know, showing up again? Who knows? I just think they have an opportunity, and I'm quite excited because I enjoyed the book enough that I believe it should be considered canon. It
is really, isn't it? So.
Yeah, I wish that it was done slightly differently.
Yeah.
But
I think Suzanne told the story that she wanted to tell. And as long as she was happy telling the story and people enjoy it, and I think that's fine, because I think at the end of the day, as writers ourselves, you're the only one who can tell the story that you want to tell.
exactly. And I am happy to have read it, and I hope that she doesn't make more books in the future, because I don't know whose stories we would see that we don't already know, but
Yeah, I think the Hunger Games. I think it doesn't need any more books. Apparently, there's a rumor there's another book. I don't know. I don't think it needs any more. I think.
the only ones I would read, well, I think would be Finnick and Joanna. But I would
Oh
want to
yeah.
read Finnick afterwards, like more like a novella, just to show exactly how awful the victors are treated. And I think Joanna, it would be interesting to see maybe again like a novella, but I don't think I want a novel, and I don't think that even if they came out, I probably wouldn't be as excited for them.
No, I think sometimes the less we have about a world, the more that there's a fan
Speculation is
culture
the
around it.
best, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. I mean, I think we agree with that. Basically, it was good, but it wasn't perfect. My rating
But
is largely because of the love for the series, and
and the vibes.
yeah. And yours is completely valid because I probably, you know, I,
Yeah, I will say I'm glad I read it, and I'm glad I didn't get spoilt for it because
I
I would
don't
have
know
not had that
how.
reaction to chapter one. I just kept scrolling to avoid spoilers. I mean,
Sure.
I knew Lenore and everyone else and his family were gonna die because he's on his
Yeah.
own. Also, the way they went out was horrible.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll say, like, my whole perception of the Hunger Games, I think something important to note is that I do have a Hunger Games tattoo. So
Ooh.
maybe not the most, a little bit biased. Um, so probably for the best that you gave it a 3.
Wait, is that the tattoo that's on your arm?
Yes.
I don't. No, I'm not being weird. Like I actually, I knew you had a tattoo. I just didn't. I haven't really looked at it. What is
Yeah.
it again? I can't remember.
It's Phoenix Trident.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Um,
See, right, did that hurt? Because right, I really want a tattoo, but I'm scared of it getting hurt. I want it on my wrist,
the way
and
that
I'm scared of it
my
hurting.
artist described it, which I think is accurate, is that it's like getting scratched by a cat, but consistently for about an hour and whatever. Um,
Okay.
and it's not necessarily awful. I will say that the wrist is more painful. My
Oh
mum,
yeah, no, I've heard that.
it's because if there's less flesh, like if there's more muscle or bone and stuff, it's more painful. So like my arm ones, the very top of them, where they like get close to my armpit, that was the more painful bit because that's the most sensitive.
Oh well, I really want a Six of Crows tattoo.
See, I would say go for it, because like a good artist as well will make you take breaks. This is a completely unrelated chat, but if you're out there, I
Okay.
have a book tattoo from the Hunger Games, and I plan in the future of getting book tattoos of my own books.
Oh, okay, that's a cool idea.
Yeah, I want to get stuff for Formation Lap, and like I think I'm gonna get maybe like Natasha's number or something tattooed on me. I might make up a logo for her, or I was thinking of getting the Belvedere team logo or something. Like I want to get like little stuff of my books on my body, and I think that there are going to be people out there who resonate with that, who have their own book tattoos.
Okay.
We
No,
have
wait,
a
that's really
comment
cool. I like
section.
that.
If you are on YouTube, if you're on Spotify or wherever, if there is a comment section, please tell us what book tattoos you have, whether they're your own books or books that you've read. If you have a Hunger Games tattoo, please tell me. I know that people do, but I would love to not feel alone. Anyway, but yeah, I encourage everyone to get tattoos because while they're painful, I have only bled on one of my tattoos, which was on a muscle, like very much on the muscle. Um, and honestly, like it's not as bad as you think, and especially for women apparently sit way better because of the pain tolerance. So
I wonder. Well, we know what that is.
yeah. But it honestly, like a good artist will make you take breaks and stuff if you need to anyway. So it I would say if you really want a good tattoo, I look at my tattoos and the ink on my skin, and I'm just like, yeah. So a bit of tattoo appreciation to end off this episode.
Yeah, why not? So next week we're going to be going back to the writing, and if I remember correctly, we're
Yes.
talking about side characters.
I get to talk about Al. My side characters are some of my favourite, honestly, because like I put them
It's
through
sad
so
that-
much less horror than my main.
It's sad that when your side characters are more in depth than your main sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's like you have to give them more depth because you don't explore their story. So
Exactly.
yeah, but we're gonna talk about our side characters and probably a bunch of unrelated stuff that is interesting, hopefully. It's called Bookish Rumbles for a reason, folks.
No,
Okay?
I know. I just think it's hilarious how what I find really funny is I sometimes really struggle to have conversations. Meanwhile, here I'm just talking about
We
absolute
have to
anything.
keep it to an hour. We have to. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, we will see you in a week's time. And again, I mean, if you're going to comment, you also can feel free to ask us questions. You know, we both have, if you go to our social medias, we have ways of talking about our books. I have a YouTube channel where I've gone in depth into my books that I'm working on. You've done similar stuff. You've talked about your book online.
Yes, I do have a YouTube channel. I have where I've talked about the whole like drafting process and the querying. It is linked on the YouTube page if you want to go there. And yeah, TikTok is where you can find me mainly because I haven't posted anything for ages, so I need to get back to that. But that is mainly where I post about it because I'm gonna have to think of a marketing plan because I think I'll talk about that in a few episodes. We'll talk about that.
Publishing plans.
Yeah, I think that would be another episode we do at some point.
But if you do go on and have a look at our projects, feel free to ask us questions that we could maybe answer about side characters or just generally, because I would love to do that personally. I think we want to make this a community experience rather than just two people talking in a room. Feel free to ask us questions about our characters. We will have a very long chat. Talk to us about your tattoos. That is not a threat or an order, but it would be appreciated. Any closing remarks?
No, I think we've said everything we need to say.
And more, probably.
And
My
more.
bad.
And there's a fly. And there's a fly. I'm gonna kill that. There we go.
Right, I will say goodbye then. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye. You know, like in Sleeping Beauty, where she's like, goodbye.
I gotta go. That was more Mickey Mouse. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye to the fly. And we'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye.